Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. As you know, I am Tony Lynch. I am your host. So, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head over to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. And as always, we have a really fantastic guest for you guys today, and she's talking about an amazing journey that she's had with pregnancy loss, but also this is for educational purposes only. And without further ado, I am going to bring up my next guest. And you guys, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments section, and we'll be sure to answer those as we go along in this journey. So get your pens and pencils ready, and we're going to jump into it. Adina, how you doing?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
I am doing well. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. And if you could just tell people who you are and where you're from.
I am Adinah Johnson. I am a retired psychology professor. I'm also a YouTuber. My husband and I are marriage coaches, and we have that on YouTube under Nick and Adinah, Nik and Adinah, Adinah. And I'm also a podcaster. My podcast, Black Butterfly, Black Pearls, is with my friend of over 45 years. So, and that's anywhere you can get podcasts. I always walk in my house and say, Alexa, play Butterfly, Black Pearls podcast. So, and then here we go. And because I am a retired psychology professor, all of my episodes have some psychology at the end. So I usually talk to women about gaslighting, how to recognize somebody's like gaslighting, how to know if you're dating a narcissist, questions to ask before you start seriously dating someone, questions to ask before you move in with someone. So we have a lot of research that goes into our podcast.
See, I'm gonna have to sneak in on one of those because you just said a whole lot of things that I need to be asking questions about. Like, hold on, I need to start checking off the boxes here, like instead of jumping in and finding out the hard way. Like, oh man, I did it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we get into the meat of things, I always like to start off. Who was Adina before you became a psychologist?
Before I became a psychology professor, I was a youth counselor for 14 years,
Okay.
which kind of pretty much started my journey as far as not wanting to have biological kids. Even though I had a son already, my husband and I started dating, and 3 weeks later, we drove a young lady to the hospital to give birth to a little boy.
Hmm. Okay.
And my mom had raised her, and since she I don't know, it was like a generational thing where she just could not raise this child. When
Hmm.
I was a psychology professor, I'm sorry, I was a youth counselor, and I went to a program to get a job. And because this young lady had just had this baby, I turned down the job and asked them to get her in the program. And it was a program for young mothers to teach them life skills, teach them how to raise their children, teach them how to basically run a household and be a parent. And so it was like parenting, life skills all rolled in one. Well, 4 months into him being born, he was here. He was 4 months old. I found him in the apartment by himself.
Wow.
So I realized at that juncture she could not raise this child. And
Hmm.
I was of the mindset I did not want to have children, but I talk about it in my book, Butterfly Blue. I realized that she could not raise this child. So there became my journey of being a mom.
Okay. Now, see, that is truly interesting, and thank you for taking on that responsibility. I think the children of the day need good women and good men in their lives as well. To help raise those children to be better people than we were. I know for me, it's like, yeah, be a better man than me, please.
Mhm.
But yeah, thank you for doing that work. But that's just the beginning, right?
That was absolutely the beginning. And like I say, my husband and I, we started dating, and 3 weeks later, he drove her to the hospital to give birth to this little boy. And so we both were like, we don't want kids. But when we saw the situation, we just could not abandon him. We could not leave him out there.
Mm.
So before we got married, I actually adopted him with my mother. So you're talking about same sex intergenerational adoption.
See, that is amazing. Now, because now we hear about these things, right, all the time. But as African American women, I was just reading something about that. How some African American women, they often do walk away from their children. Sometimes in some situations, we hear the stories and things like that. Does
Well,
that?
it's not just the African American woman thing. You have plenty of women that are not maternal and they walk away from
Mm,
their kids. In my practice, I've seen quite a few who just,
okay.
and it's not just black women, it's, across the board. I've seen a lot of women who just are
Okay.
not interested in being moms. And it was a situation because my mom had raised her. And so
Okay.
that's how I realized that she was not capable of being a mom to this little boy. And after that is when because my mom had raised her without documentation, is when I went to the courts and got legal documentation for him. And I put my mom and my name on it because we were both joint parents. And then when my husband and I got married, it became a merger of contracts, meaning he was a parent too. And
Mm,
that was perfect because he was a father to the child. He was there since day one. He was like the first man that held the baby. So it just worked. It fit. Which we weren't married at the time. Of course, we had just started dating 3 weeks prior, but that was
right.
a major sticking point for me because I suffered depression, wondering where was this baby and was he
Mm,
okay? And it was just very difficult for me. And at the time, I was working on my master's degree. So, and I was working full time as a youth counselor. So there was a lot going on, and I talk about all of it in my book.
that's impressive. That's very impressive. And because you said a term that I really was not very familiar with, non-maternal, right? Because I was raised by my mother, and the women in my family, they describes just like your mother and what you did. They raised the grandkids, they raised us, right? Because it takes a village.
Hmm.
Um, and so, I can only speak from the perspective of the things that I've seen. So thank you for clarifying that and saying that, hey, it is across the board. Because, when things aren't in your face, right? We tend to look past them, so to speak.
Right.
And so, yeah, that word non-maternal, it's like a foreign word to me. So when you say non-maternal, can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
She just didn't have the skills. Um, she just didn't have the skills, and her mom didn't have the skills. That's why she was
Hmm,
raised by her grandmother and my mother.
okay.
So it's like some women want to be a mom. Some people just really, you hear some people saying, some women saying, I've always just wanted to be a mom. I used to play with my baby dolls. I used to line my baby dolls up. I used to feed them. I used to, really get into that maternal instinct. And
Right.
some moms, some women don't. Some women, get pregnant and it's like, oops. Some step up to the plate and some can't. They just can't.
Mm,
They just don't have it to give.
okay. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. Because it just shed a lot of light because I often see men do the same thing. Men are like, I'm not with all of that right there. But I think a lot of times when it comes down to men, it's just that we don't want to give up the lifestyle of being on the, being a thug or, whatever that's entailed, right? There's a sense of, or there's a lack of commitment in a lot of cases. And I think, and I'm only speaking from a man's point of view, and feel free to elaborate on it because I know you've seen both sides of it and things like that. But there is a lack of commitment. Like I don't want to stop hanging out with my boys. You know what I'm saying? Or I don't want to leave the streets. And I speak from experience when I say that because I've done the same thing. So I don't want to be a hypocrite in no way and say, that I've never done it. Yes, I have done it. But it took me a long. I think it took me a long time just to understand, right, what it would entail to be a male, and to be a father.
Hmm.
I didn't figure those things out until later on in life. And I just think, most of us just being afraid of letting go of what was familiar to me.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
what do you? Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you think about that?
Well, and that's why in my podcast, Black Butterfly, Black Pearls, I talk to women about making sure they have the answers to some of those questions. That's
Mm,
why we bring up some of those questions. Talk about those things. I mean, if you just have some conversations, then a lot of those things can be realized. You can find out a whole lot because people want to tell you. You just have to know the questions to ask. And so that's why my podcast partner and I, us being seasoned women now, we're both in our 50s. We've been friends for 45, over 45 years. When I
okay.
was 6 and she was 5, we became friends. So when I retired as a psychology professor last year, I said, I'm going to start a podcast. And she was like, I want to go with you. So we think it's important that we teach the younger women how to ask some of those questions, how to make sure you can avoid some of the mistakes that the previous generation made, because it's so much knowledge and information out there. So
Hmm.
you don't have to make the same mistakes as the women prior to you.
Okay. See, that's always great information to know, as a male moving forward, because it helps me expand my horizons as well, and
Well,
to
and
better.
the, and the reason, I don't mean to cut you off, but the reason
No,
I
no, you're
say
fine.
that is because a woman is the one that carries the child in her body.
Right.
So to ask a male, what are we doing? What are we here for? What are your intentions? Those things are supposed to be asked before you decide to procreate with someone.
Hmm.
Before
Okay.
you mix your DNA, that's going to be a lifetime. You know,
Right.
a lot of people are afraid of marriage, but you can end a marriage. You can't end being a parent.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, and I guess that's one of the reasons I never got married. I was always patient, and observant of who I was with, and I knew I just didn't want to make a mistake because, like you said, well, in my view, if I get married, we're committed. we we made some vows, and so through thick and thin, and all of it, sickness and death. So we're gonna have to work these things out. Unfortunately, I keep finding the ones that don't want to work out these things, that they do have similar issues or narcissism, just a whole lot of unhealed trauma.
Well, and let
And
me tell you what I did to avoid that.
yes,
When I talked to God, Jesus, hello,
yes,
I said, at the ripe old age of 23, I was 22 or 23. I said, I want a husband. So because of my psychology background, I wrote down everything I wanted God to send me in a man. And when
hmm,
I looked at the list, it was 11-page college rule that I wrote that I wanted God to send me in a spouse. And my husband and I talk about that on our YouTube channel. I literally showed the list on my YouTube channel and went through and some of the questions that I asked God to send me in a mate. But after I finished writing this long list, the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, are you all of those things?
mm,
So you attract what you are. It's called the law of attraction.
right,
So
yes,
immediately, what I started doing was correcting some of my behaviors. Immediately, I started working on me, because if I'm a person that's no count, is not honest, guess what I'm going to attract?
the same.
So I had to start working on me so I could recognize a person that doesn't mean me well. And I literally would talk to different people because I was young, I was dating, and I would ask them questions from the list. Whoever I was talking to at the time, do you have kids? If he said yes, not my person. Because I asked God for the person that didn't have children.
Okay,
But is
okay.
it ironic that my husband and I didn't have children, didn't necessarily want children, but in 3 weeks after dating, we took a young lady to the hospital to have a child and ended up becoming parents.
That
So,
is, yeah, very ironic. And I
so
find that fascinating.
very fascinating. And so some of the other things I asked God to send me in this person, I was very, very specific. Being a young woman, you'll have to go on my channel, and I
I
embarrassed my
got you.
husband. I embarrassed my husband to no end because some of the things I asked God for. And I would ask certain men, have you been married before? Yes, I've been married. You're not my guy, because I wanted someone, a husband of one wife. That's me.
Hmm.
I did not want that baggage in a man. So I think as women, we need to be honest with ourselves and know what we want and be able to be what we want first and then attract what we want. Because it's the thing is, if you're not talking to God, if you're not knowing who you are, then you'll take attract a whole bunch of junk. And I wasn't interested in playing games with my life. I met
Understood.
my husband back in the 90s. I asked him, I said, "Are you willing to take an AIDS test before we even get intimate?" Back then, you had to wait 2 weeks for your results.
Yeah.
And this was about a while after talking to him. You're not going to get into my body and cause all these pheromones and hormones and, all this, dopamine and all these things. And I don't know who you are and I don't know where you've been.
Mm, that's powerful because I think, I've grown up in the same area. I mean, you're a tad bit older than me, but that's not no shade at all. You know what I'm saying? I find that very, very wise to be able to do those things at that age, right? Because I was 20 something before too.
Yeah.
And luckily, just very, very luckily, I knew how to wait. But I was around women that didn't, right? And they end up having 7, 8, 9 kids by, 5 or 6 different baby daddies. And I was just like, man, I don't want that. See, you're like yourself, I knew what I wanted. I just looked at it from a male's perspective. But I
Yeah.
also looked at the men that were, I can't call them men. I looked at the
Males.
boys, the
Yeah.
males that was around me in an environment that we was in, and I kind of just accepted that it was the way that it was. Right? It is what it is. One of my favorite terms. It is what it is. But now,
But
being
it doesn't have
someone,
to be. But it
it
doesn't
doesn't
have
have to be. It doesn't have to be, and you're absolutely right. But we're looking at a different time too, right? And everybody's different,
Well,
And at the
yeah.
time, it was like, like it's, we was raised in the gangs. We had what you call hood rats,
Mhm.
right? And I don't mean no disrespect when I call them that. Those that was growing up around there, they understand. Hopefully, um, but yeah, they were like the ones that you just passed around, and once around they got pregnant by a whole bunch of dudes,
Mhm.
and I know it was crazy. I used to watch it, and I'm like, that's not what I want. But I didn't know what I want.
Well, but let me just say this. I know you talk about the women being pass arounds or whatnot, and I get that, but you have to understand the women that are going through that, there's trauma there. They're looking
Right?
for
Yes,
love. They're
yes,
looking for
totally
love.
agree.
And that's why we encourage the younger women to ask the proper questions. I mean, and the things that I've gone through and the things that I've done in my life, I'm not saying it to put shade or to hurt anybody or to say, well, you didn't do this. No, because I made mistakes as well. But
Mhm.
what we're trying to do in our podcast is teach younger women to ask the questions, to not be that pass around, to have
Right,
to have a little bit more concern for yourself because like you said, like we said, a man can drop his seat and keep it moving. But
right,
as that woman, we can't necessarily do that. So some of the things we need to understand is we have to be a student of our environment like you were. You were a student of your environment and you learned that that's not what I wanted to do. So
right.
not only do we have to be a student of our environment, but we also have to be a student of the environment of the person that we're looking at to procreate because we
Mm.
don't know what type of generational issues are in their family. You see what
Very
I'm
true.
saying? So
Yeah.
with my husband and I, we did say we didn't want to have children biologically or have children because once we adopted our son, we were like, we have a son. But after he finished his master's degree, he wanted legacy. So that's when he asked me, he said, Adina, I think I want to have biological children. But when we announced that we were pregnant with our first biological child, we announced at our 10-year wedding anniversary party. So
Mm.
I have been around his family. I have been a student of environment. I had already saw the attitudes, the behaviors in his family, in my family. We looked at all those things. So I encourage young women to look at all those things because you don't know what type of what type of you don't know what type of genetical problems a person has in their family until you're around them, until you
Right.
look at them, until you ask the questions. I ask the questions. And that's what we encourage young women to do, to ask the questions. I literally, well, I'm not gonna go there, but anyway, I see some
No,
red flags in families, and I'm looking like, do you not hear what he is saying to you?
see, I thought I was the only one that paid attention to those things. I used to look around and go, I was the guy like, so I'm one of those dudes. If I go into a relationship and don't work, I take years. Because for one, I want to heal. I want to analyze the mistakes that I've made so I
Hmm.
can be better, right, and grow. but also understanding my background, where I've come from, and all of the things that, you know, I don't want to carry these things. If it's good habits and good morals and good values, yes, I'm going to reincorporate those into the new journey of my healing.
Hmm.
But I used to sit around and watch my buddies, and I'm going, like, did you not hear? Listen, oh man, I'm, man, look, I'm telling you, don't do it, man. She gonna kill you.
Yeah, yeah.
She
That
gonna
was
kill
one
you.
of my that was one of my questions. Have you ever called a woman out of her name? On the list I wrote for my husband. Have you ever
Yeah.
called a woman out of your name, out of her name? Have you ever put your hands on a woman? Have your
Mm.
parents, did your parents fight each other? How does that look? How did you grow up with a two-family household? Those were some of the questions I asked him before I decided, okay, I want to spend a little bit more time with him. We've been together
Okay.
27 years, married 24.
I see. Now that is truly amazing, right? Because in those questions, if someone was to ask me those questions, I would go, well, I would say that you can ask them, but they're no longer here, right? So I wouldn't have anything to reference. It would just be a one-sided story and things like that. So they wouldn't be able to go back and ask my parents, how it was and things like that. And as children, it's easy for us to tell the story from the perspective of being a child, right?
Yeah.
And those can be very, very easily misconstrued in a lot of cases, because we may take what our parents do the wrong way, right? Like I talk about my mother. I love my mother. I really did. I love my mother. I loved every woman in my family. They taught me, not to hit a woman. Now I have a little sister, but I used to fight with her all the time. We fought like cats and dogs. And when mom would go, boy, you're not supposed to hit a woman. I go, I'm not. I'm beating up her. She's my sister. And she
Yeah.
go, boy, I'm gonna punch you out. I'm like, hey, man, I can't win for losing. But I learned as I got older, what they were trying to instill in me, and things like that. And I don't want to go too far off topic. I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah.
But you ended up getting pregnant, right?
Well, let me go back a little bit.
Okay.
One of my questions were, have you ever hit a woman? And the guy that I talked to at that time, and I asked him that question, his response to me was, I wouldn't hesitate to knock a woman on her behind.
Mm, mm-mm.
Not my guy.
No.
Not
Mm-mm.
my guy.
Look, I'm afraid that you're gonna hit me. I'm afraid that you're gonna knock me out. My mother was a boxer. She had heavy hands, so she didn't play that. Oh no, mama, look,
You
I when I
boxing.
I'm 6'4", and I used to look my mother in the eye. That's how tall my mom was.
Oh,
All
she
right.
was not playing.
Oh yeah, she didn't play at all. So my mother was the one who taught me how to fight. And like when she hit you, you definitely know you got hit. So my thing was is that no one in my family warned me. They all had stories, but I was like, no one told me that she was knocking people out. And
Nobody had to tell you. That was your mama. If you
well,
look
I
at her,
needed to
you'll
know how
know.
to move around. Look. I needed to know how to move around, because you know what I'm saying. As a young man, as being the oldest one, I needed to know how to dodge some punches and things like that. They
That
just
ain't
let
the
me
way you
run
go.
into them. I was like, look, that ain't fair. Y'all knew she was this. Y'all knew she could fight.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't even tell me.
That
That's
ain't what you
wrong.
want. That ain't
Yeah,
what you want. All
but
right. I'm
I
sorry.
love it,
I
right?
digress. You had another question. I'm sorry.
No, good. I love it, right? Because it's just funny to me, because I was like, man, I grew up around strong women. They didn't play that. Even my younger sister, my sister don't play that. My sister knock you out. So I think we need to pose the questions to her. Have you ever hit a man before? She's probably be like, yeah. So thanks for the ammo, baby girl. Have you ever hit a man before? You ain't got to answer that. We already
And
know.
she'll tell you, I wouldn't hesitate to knock my ex out. And
Oh,
that's
you
when
know
he
what?
better move along.
My sister, look, my sister is a tough. She's a tough, beautiful young lady. Now, when I say beautiful, it's very deceptive, because you wouldn't think that she would get you, but she would. And she raised four beautiful daughters. Four of
Hmm.
my nieces, four beautiful daughters. And I tell you what, they all got hands. They all, no, the men that y'all get with, they better be tough, and they better mind their P's and Q's, right?
Yeah.
I ain't got to do nothing. I ain't got to do nothing at all. I just sit back and go, man, you're on your own. I ain't messing with them crazy ones.
Right.
They crazy. Yo, they good. They good women. They good. Very intelligent. But I ain't mess with them. I'm too old for that. I can't run too fast anymore. All right. I just get tired too fast.
Hmm.
But I digress. So my question was so you did end up getting pregnant, right?
Well,
And I think this is where your journey kind of started changing a little bit.
yes,
Let's talk about that for a minute.
when I started dating my husband, I asked him, I said, "Do you have a sickle cell trait?" That was one of the questions I asked him because I have a sickle cell trait. And I was always taught that if since I was a small child, if you get with someone that has a sickle cell trait, then it is a high chance that your child will have sickle cell,
Okay.
which is very debilitating to a lot of people. So that was one of the questions I asked him prior to. So when he came to me, I asked him, I said, if you change your mind and you do want to have children, because we were raising our son, I said, if you want to have children, let me know before my 35th birthday. Well, he came to me 4 months before my 36th birthday and said, I think I want to have children. So my response to him was, where's my husband? Because that time has passed. We had a conversation, and I told you before I turned 35, I'll be 36 in a couple months. So at that point, I started going to the doctor to get off birth control and to see, was it viable? Could I get pregnant? And to get advice from the doctors. And they said, go ahead and give it a try, 6 months to a year. If nothing happens, once you stop birth control, come and see us. So it didn't happen right away. And when it did happen, I had a miscarriage.
Hmm.
And then we picked our face off the ground, kept going, had a miscarriage number 2. Then we got pregnant after we continued. We went to do fertility treatments, IUI, which is in vitro insemination. We
Hmm.
did insemination first, where they put the washed sperm, the man sperm, into the woman's uterus. And so we did that, and no pregnancy after a while. So then we went to IVF, and I literally watched them put 3 healthy embryos in my uterus. 2 weeks later, I was not pregnant. So at that point, I said, you know what? We're done. We've had 2 miscarriages. We have our son who is adopted. We'll be fine with him. Well, I went home, started doing just getting healthy, working out, because when I was going through the infertility treatments, it put a lot of weight on me. So I started taking my allergy medicine because I wasn't taking allergy medicine. What sometimes people have what's called hostile mucus. And
Okay.
what hostile mucus is, when you think about it, it can stop the egg from getting to the sperm.
Mm.
I'm sorry, it could stop the sperm from getting to the egg.
Right.
Yeah, I said that backwards. Sorry. But I'm in Florida. We have seasonal allergies. So when you're all stuffed up, you're not just stuffed up here, you're stuffed up everywhere. And people don't recognize there's mucus in other parts of the body that could stop you from getting pregnant. So I started taking my allergy medicine, and I was done with all the doctors, and lo and behold, got pregnant.
Hmm.
Got
Okay.
pregnant, and that's when we announced at our 10-year wedding anniversary party that we were pregnant with our son. And by then I was very pregnant. I had people coming to the party saying, Adinah, you're pregnant. Like, I didn't know. So I had my first biological child at 38. And then after that, we're like, well, we had a couple of miscarriages, but we're fine. Let's let's try for one more child. I was my dad's only biological child, so I wanted more than one biological child.
Okay.
So try it again, 2 more miscarriages. So at miscarriage
Mhm.
number 3, I told my husband, I said, I'm done with this. I'm not doing this anymore. He said, let's try one more time. So we had miscarriage number 4. I said, I'm done. No, he said, I'm done. And I told him, I said, well, I tried. He said, I'm done. I'm going to go get my vasectomy. And I was like, please don't. I said, I tried one more time for you. Let's try one more time. And so he said, okay. And that's when we got pregnant with our daughter. She's 10. So I had my son at 38, my daughter at 41. And, it just takes a lot of communication. But 6 weeks later, after I had my daughter, he went ahead and got snip. He said, I'm not doing this with you anymore.
Definitely understand. Now, I have to ask, having gone through that, how did it emotionally affect you? Because I've talked to a lot of women. I have a couple friends who are miscarriage practitioners and things like that, and they've all had different ways of phrasing. Like they wonder what was going on with their body,
Yeah.
things like that. There was a lot of shame because their bodies wasn't functioning the way that they felt that it was supposed to.
Hmm.
Now I pose that question to you. Did you go through something similar, depression, having those questions? Because being a psychologist, and as talented as you are, did you have those questions as well?
Absolutely. And that's why I mentioned the whole sickle cell trait, because
Hmm.
we found out, because they were telling me, even when we got embryos tested, they were like, oh, it was a healthy baby. Well, it couldn't have been healthy because my body is failing me. You know, my body is not functioning properly. So I believed it was the sickle cell that was causing the children to not, be viable, to not
Mm.
make it. So yeah, there was a lot of depression around that area. But I think for my husband and I, we had a lot of communication at that time. A lot of times, couples break up because they can't ask the right questions. They can't function. They don't know how to respond to each other, and then they attack each other. When it What I talk to my husband about is like, we're not going to attack each other. We're in this together. So when I felt inadequate, he was able to talk to me, but he also felt inadequate in many cases because he couldn't fix it. And a lot of guys, what they want to do is fix it.
Right.
And so it took a lot of communication. A lot of nights that we just laid in bed and cried because it was just so painful, and he didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know what to do but to keep trying. So it just takes a lot of communication. I'm grateful that we were marriage coaches, because that's when we needed that training. It's like, you don't get the training. It's just like, before the fire, you've gone through a fire drill so you can know what to do.
Right.
That's what marriage coaching is. It gives you tools to know how to handle situations when they arise. You don't wait until there's a problem and then try to get the tools. And
Mm.
so that's part of the reason why it helped. It was so helpful for us that in the first year we got married, we went ahead and started getting tools as far as marriage. And people
Okay.
were asking us, why are you doing marriage coaching? Because we want a fantastic marriage. We want the tools. I mean, how often are we trained on our jobs? Every year about the same stuff.
Very true.
Why don't you think you have to get trained in life for the most important things?
Mm. I love that right there, and so the kind of on a something similar path, it's like mental health, right? You want the tools before you need them, and I'm a huge component in that. So that's why I love that you said that, because you went out and got the tools and said, hey, you know what, this may come about, even though you need them at the time. Hey, this may come about. I'm gonna have them in my tool belt for those times that do. And I love the fact that you did that. And guys, women, please. What she's saying, it makes perfect sense. If you guys are thinking about starting a relationship, go check her out. Especially the women, men as well, because we don't think right sometimes. So it's always good to know. And if you're married, going through troubles, please go check them out. And I can't speak from the marriage aspect because that's outside of my lane. I've never been married before, and I'm one of those dudes. I never talk about anything that I don't know nothing about, because the assholes do that. I don't want to do that. I don't. But yeah, when it comes down to mental health, that's where I can relate that to, because I have struggled with my mental health. But I also was that guy when I got into the grief field. I said, you know what? I have these tools in grief that I've learned along the way. Maybe I need them, maybe I don't. Put them in the tool belt, but also dealing with the unseen trauma, childhood trauma, dealing with commitment issues. Where do those things stem from? So, like yourself, I dissected myself. There's a phrase that that really held on to that I really held on to that was said by David Goggins, and it was like I put myself in a flame in the fire. And I kept beating on it, keep beating on myself until I began to dissect it. And I wanted to find out who I was, not just on a surface level, not just on the meat and bones, you know what I'm saying, type thing, but I wanted to know myself on the level of um, spiritual understanding, and in turn opened up my mind to have a relationship with God and to expand my knowledge, not just from a subconscious realm, but to an unconscious realm as well, so
Yeah.
I can be able to relate to those that I encounter.
Well,
So,
and so it can be second nature. So you can automatically know, oh, that's the fire drill. I already know to go that way.
right,
You see what I'm saying? So you can
right,
already know ahead of time. It's called conscious uncompetence. It's called uncompetence, meaning you already know. I think I'm saying that wrong, but you already know what to do before it happens.
right, yeah, and it takes a long time to train yourself
Conscious
to do something.
competence is what it's called. Thank you.
Conscious confidence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
conscious.
I love it. I love it though, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, well, it's not incompetence. I think it's
No, it's
confidence.
conscious
But
competence.
you took the words out. But yeah, I encourage people to do that, and listen to you. It's like, okay, it's like I was on the right path. And I know there's so many other people out there that are struggling with understanding, right? What the next steps are. And, we try to get them resources and things like that so they don't have to struggle the way that we've done. Now, you got your kids, you got your biological son, you got your biological daughter, you have your adopted son, things like that. Life is going pretty good for you now at this moment.
Oh, amazing. I just retired last year after 20 years in the classroom. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what made you decide to get into the classroom? I
Well,
just,
after being a youth counselor for 14 years, I suffered from burnout.
okay.
So when I was a youth counselor, I went ahead and got my master's in human resources and management. And so my first love was always psychology. So the
Mm,
next best thing for the school I wanted to go to was human resources, and that teaches a lot of the psychology classes as well, but also management. Because at that point, when I was working on my master's degree, I was getting close to burnout, and I really was trying to figure out where do I go next. And
hmm
so it just helped to go into the classroom and to talk about the psychology aspect. And I taught industrial psychology and behavioral psychology to help individuals learn how to deal with individuals in the workplace.
Okay. Now, is it different? Because I've done some study in behavioral psychology. That's like one of the things that I've incorporated into how I show up with men in grief, right? It's a lot of behavioral work that goes along with there, but also a lot of when it comes down to the behavioral work, helping them understand, and by bringing these things out, like, hey, these things that you're doing right now, we have to start to separate them, so which ones, what is what, right? I can't give away all our secrets, but I do a pretty good job of helping them understand from in-depth perception that, hey, these behavioral traits, we need to start looking at where they're coming from. Are they yours, or are they something that you have picked up along the way? And what I find, during the behavioral side, is that most human beings, male and female, we pick up traits from people and we adopt them as our own. And I think there was a study done, and they were saying, what did he say? They were saying, so we're going to separate these people over here, and they're doing group experiments and things like that. And what they found, that in a certain group that was raised around um, different environments,
Yeah.
one good, one bad, right? That although we didn't start off that way, the people that they were around, they adopted their
Like some of
habits.
their traits and behaviors. Yeah, that's nature versus nurture.
Right? Yes, yes, yes. So
Is
yeah,
it heredity? Is it nature? Who I'm around? Is it nature who I was born to be, or is it nurture who I'm around? Who nurtured me? Who,
right.
did I pick up some of those traits? So that's important. And when I look at my son that's adopted, I've asked that question a lot as far as nature versus nurture. Is that something that's part of him, what he was born with, or is it something that he picked up from us as the family that nurtured him?
Yes, yes.
So, that's always a case study, but there will be some things that you will see. It's like when people have kids and they're like, you're just like your dad or you're just like your mom. And it's like, that's the nature side. That's how they were born. But that's why it's important that you look at some of those things before you decide to have a child with someone. Because I look at my 13-year-old and oh my God, he's so much like me. Jesus. It's like, I'm just like, I can't stand you nor me. Get away.
I love it. I can't stand you.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's like, and I was talking to my mom yesterday or the day before. Yeah, it was yesterday. And she goes, whatever I told you to do, you did it. I was like, that is not the truth. And I have to deal with it today because she would say something and it was always, but why? But mom, but. And now I'm dealing with that now with my 13-year-old. And I'm just like, son, listen to me and hear what I am saying. But yeah, he's my difficult one, but he's just like me. And so a lot of times we bond on that and he'll say, but mom, I'm just like you. And I'm like, yeah, and I've told you that.
I find that funny because I hear it all the time, right? I just laugh, right? I remember my mother telling my daughter, telling my sister when we were younger, when you have kids, your kids gonna be just like you, right? And she was like, my sister said, fine, I'd rather them be like me than to be like you. And her and my mom used to go back and I was the one that sat around on the sidelines and I would keep notes like what not to say, right? Not gonna do that. I'm gonna just punch her in the mouth. Definitely not gonna do that. So I learned from the younger sister, right? But my younger sister learned from me as well, like, I can get you in trouble. And so then I asked my mom one day, I said, Mama, judging how she is, were you the same way? And of course, what she said? No, I wasn't like that. So I went to my grandmother. I went directly to my grandmother. I said, Grandma, we need to sit down. Me, you, and Mama. We need to sit down and talk about this daughter of yours because I need to know what this. I need to know was she like this when she was younger. And sure enough, my mother was the oldest of 21. Oldest of 21. So she got a lot of younger siblings that she used to beat up. Beat them up. And so I heard the stories. Now I'm talking to grandma and mama. Yeah, she was like that. She'll knock you out. She'll bust you up. But and then I was like, well, where did that come from? She goes, oh, she always thought that she was playing. If that's the way she played, why did so it made a lot more sense as I got older, because I knew my mother at that point. I was like, yeah, you can't tell me nothing now, I know. And then that's when her brothers and sisters were like, yeah, man, she just hits so damn hard. I was going,
Well, and that's why I encourage people before you get involved in a situation or in a relationship, you ask the questions of those siblings. You ask them,
mm-hmm.
and siblings will tell you. You just kind of sit there and how was so and so when they grew up, or they'll just tell you how they were, and it's usually the same as they are now. So you just have
Mm-hmm.
to really have a conversation and know the questions to ask and to make it seem like it's not an interrogation but part of the conversation, and make mental notes of that. They told
Mm-hmm.
me with my husband that he would loan them money. This is so funny. He at 5 he would loan them money and want interest back.
It was like this is a business transaction. So understood. Now those traits are normally developed at a very early age. Things like that, from what I understand about child psychology.
Mhm.
Most children will start to develop their characteristics around the age of 6 or 7.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
already solidified by 7. Who they're going to
okay,
be
okay.
is who they are at 7. I'm sorry, at 6. But and that's my husband. He's amazing with money.
Mm,
He's
okay.
excellent. that's why I was able to retire at 50, because he's really good with money.
Okay, that makes a lot. That makes a lot of sense. You know, do you find that with your own children that they've already started to develop their characteristics of who they going to be when they get older?
Oh yeah, with my with my oldest son, he's 27 now. And when he was in school, they would say he likes to play all the time. And I knew it because he's still playful. He's 27, he's still playful. But he's a really good kid, big heart. And he's just he's an empath. He feels everything.
Mm,
So he was always like that. When he was a little fella, he would see people in the street, or if I would pull up in a handicap parking space, he would say, please don't park there, because he didn't want me to, even if I was just running in and coming out, he was just like, he just felt for other people. With my 13-year-old, which is my second child, he'll give you the shirt off his back. He's very sweet, but he's going to ask all the questions. He's going to say, why am I doing this? Why do you tell me that? But he wants to go back and forth with the mouth. And I tell him, I say, son, you're going to make a lot of money with that mouth because you're going to ask the right questions.
right.
And so I encourage him to ask the questions, but also, because he's so much like me, I encourage him to ask the questions where it's not intimidating to other people, because I've learned that it's so forceful, and I can be forceful, but I just try to teach him how to, harness those skills and that power that he has, because he has the power to make or break an entire situation. He has
Mm,
the power to wake this whole family up, and the whole family is in arms because of his attitude and how he is acting. My daughter, she's extremely quiet, but she's well read. She loves books. And so for her, the things I do for her, I just took her to a celebrity author gala. I took her for her favorite author, and she got a chance to talk with him and meet with him and do things like that. So she's very intelligent. We're going to see The Wiz over the summer, and she's also going to Washington D.C. So she's very intelligent. So with my children, I try to really encourage the things that they are involved in, that they're interested in, and
mhm.
just really hone into those things. My son, the 13-year-old, he likes to do good. He likes to go to Goodwill and shop. And it's like, I hate shopping, but I'll go to Goodwill and shop with him because I want housewares. And usually when I'm in Goodwill shopping with him, he's running off and he's picking up stuff and he's putting it in the buggy. And then I have people running up to me saying, where'd you find this? This is great. And I'm like, it wasn't me. I'm like, son, stop putting all this stuff in my buggy because people are stopping and talking to me. I don't want to talk to people. I'm just here for you. So he finds really good stuff. It's stuff that I wouldn't even think about. But, you have to encourage the things that they're interested in.
Right. Now, talk about my favorite thing, grief. You ever you ever apply your psychology techniques to those who are grieving when you're trying to educate them on relationship and marriages? Because I think that's incorporated into a lot of, because there's a lot of things that you have to uncover and heal from in order to have not only a healthy relationship with your partner, but a healthy relationship with yourself as well, right? And depending on how old you are, it's a strong reminder that you will go 20, 30 years of dealing with life handing it to you, but it's only that one time that you ask for help. So then now we have to go back, and however old you are, we have to go back to the beginning and heal all of those things. And so I'm just curious, when it comes down to psychology and helping them deal with grief to be healthy, you know, how how do you apply that?
I apply it, whereas when someone is grieving, I listen to them.
Hmm.
But while I'm listening to them, I pick up on patterns and other things they've done. So many times when someone is grieving, I look for, where can you grow? Where can you learn? And I also look at, oftentimes, where do you want to forgive yourself? Where do you have to forgive that person? Where's
Hmm.
where's forgiveness in there? And I talk a lot about that in my book, Butterfly Blue, The Pain of Infertility and the Power of Forgiveness, because
Pick
that was a big part. Show the book
it up
again.
again. Yeah, pick it up again. Show 'em.
It's right here.
Okay. I'm
No,
gonna,
but I got the book too. It's right here.
yes. Where can people? Well, before you continue, where can people find that book?
Amazon.
All right.
And
Awesome.
it's
Awesome.
also at the public library. It's at my local library. It's on bibliography also, where you can just go on bibliography and find a lot of books, and it's there. So you can read it
Okay.
for free on bibliography.
Okay. No.
So I encourage them to find areas that they need to forgive other people and they need to forgive themselves. You find a lot of times when people are grieving that there is a lot of unforgiveness there. And that's
Mm,
part of why I wrote the book. I was trying to forgive my dad for not being supportive and not being a parent. But I had to realize in the process, he just didn't have it to give. He did not
mm,
have it to give. It's almost like, if I walk up to you and say, "Hey, give me some water." Where am I going to get water from? I don't have it to give you. So you can't be mad at me for not giving you water if it's not here, if I don't have it to give. But I
right.
think a lot of times we feel like individuals should pull those things out of their rear and give it to us when they don't have it to give. I mean, he just
Right.
could not be a parent. Not to mention he had a chronic illness where he was really trying to survive. So a part of that, the power of forgiveness, and it's so crazy because I look at my book, I bring people through different therapy techniques, not now, but especially in the classroom, we would talk about different therapy techniques. But part of those is I got into psychology to help myself. So I did everything. I talked to the empty chair. I wrote the letters. I burned the letters. I flew the kite. I mean, I banged. I did this, the smash room. I banged on everything. But then I had to realize I needed to forgive him so I can be a better person. I
Mm,
needed to forgive him for me. It had nothing to do with him. I even asked him, I said, "You weren't the parent you were supposed to be. Tell me you weren't." And he finally told me he wasn't the parent that I needed. And that still wasn't good enough. So then I made him apologize. I said I needed an apology for him. I didn't tell him, but I talked to God and said, I need an apology. And he apologized and it still didn't work. So I needed to go through the process of forgiveness for me. And we have to understand that forgiveness is a process. Oftentimes, when we've forgiven someone, we forget that we forgave them. So, there were times my dad would call me and I would get angry. "Why are you calling me?" All of a sudden, all that bitterness and anger come in, and then I have to remind myself, you forgave him for that. So you don't still have the right to be angry with him. And if it's not a good time, don't answer the phone. Take a
yeah.
break.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. Take a break. Don't answer the phone until you can be respectful. Because if
Mm,
I know anything else, I am supposed to be respectful to him, because
mm,
he's my father. The
yeah.
Bible says, honor your father and your mother, not if you agree with them, not if you like how they raised you. It just says, honor your father and your mother. So,
Right.
me being honoring to him, I couldn't be angry with him. I couldn't yell at him. I couldn't continue to be disrespectful to him because that way I'm not following the Bible.
I love that. I love that because that was something that I learned. I didn't start having. I had a really beautiful relationship with my father when I was younger, but then I distanced myself. Nothing to do with them. I think as for me, my life just took me in a different direction. I became a loner. I preferred to be alone. Um, Although there was people around, that I was able to interact with. But I was just never that guy. I was just like, I seen what people, the problem with a lot of things is that I've noticed, people notice how they treat their family. And they make a conscious decision and go, I just saw the way you treated your family. What makes you think I'm going to let you treat me that way? Because if you do that to them, no telling what you'll do to me. Now, not everybody is that way, and I've met some really wonderful people in my life, right? But met those ones, and I was like, no, I think I'm just going to go over here. I think part of it too, there was something instinctively that said, hurt people.
Mhm.
Before I even understood what that analogy was, hurt people hurt people. And considering where I was at that time, I realized now being honest with myself, and I think that's part of the process of, forgiveness. I had to be honest with myself. I was in a world of hurt. On the
Hmm.
outside, it looked fine, but on the inside, my world had already fallen apart. I'm full of pain. I'm full of hurt. I'm full of anger. I knew that I did not want to pass that on to anyone, or allow someone else to come into my world so I can just crap all over top of them.
Hmm.
I was raised with morals and respect. There's some things you can do, some things that you can't do. So if I knew if I wanted a healthy relationship, I knew I had to change. Now, if I could have stayed the same and said, you know what, I'm just gonna keep it to the no strings attached thing. But I realized that was unhealthy too, right? Go
Okay.
ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say you can keep it no strings attached, but let's not procreate. Let's not bring other people into the mix. We can do no strings attached, but you have to have a conversation with that.
Yeah, again, it's all a learning process, right? You know what I'm saying? So, when I listen to you speak, I go back and I think to myself, like, yeah, I never had those, I did have those conversations like, look, I'm not looking for anyone. Like if you want to get together, have fun or whatever, that's fine. But far as a relationship, I'm not your guy. Like I
Well,
was.
but you have to understand when it's no strings attached and when I'm not your guy. You have to understand too that there are so many different, the dopamine and everything that
Mhm.
that that is part of a woman's body when you enter her body.
Right.
So if it's no strings attached, that's very difficult to say to a woman when all this oxytocin and dopamine is being oozed out, while we're doing what we're doing. You got to think about it. You know, that's when a woman has sex, it's very similar to when she's nursing her child. That's what bonds them together.
Hmm.
So to say no strings attached, it kind of disingenuous, especially when you're entering someone's body and you're doing all these things.
I understand that now, right? But at the younger version of me, I didn't know. I didn't know, right? No one ever taught me these things. It was something I had to find out along the way.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I had to tell myself, hey, that's just not the way to do it, right? But it took me having my son
Hmm.
to want to be a better role model for him, because before then, like, no one ever said, hey, don't go around doing that, and as long as you agree to it, we're going to do it, right?
Yeah.
um but I did always have the understanding that the emotions that came along with that, all the rest of the stuff, I never took the time to educate myself on those things.
Yeah.
Although I did have the knowledge because I did take a few behavior health courses of behind everybody's back, because being in the gangs, you can't be intelligent. You have to kind of play the part so you can survive in the world, right? No one likes a smart butt. Right, think about that for a minute. So the environment, I was intelligent, but I had to put on that mask so I can survive,
Right.
right? And so although I did know that I make the best decisions, no, but I can admit that now, right? I can say, you know what, I want something better, right? But before I check off the boxes with someone else, I think I need to check off the boxes with myself.
Yeah.
I forgiveness, a lot of forgiveness for the decisions that I've made. I've done that. I've asked for forgiveness for a lot of things, for people, right? Not for them, but for me. Like you said it there, for me, um, I
That's
had
why we
to.
have to work on self so we don't bleed all over people.
Right, exactly, and that's what I mean. I never wanted to. I'm at a place in my life now, and it took me having my son and saying, you know what, I want to teach him better. I want to instill good morals and values in him so he can respect, but also learn the value of being patient,
Hmm.
of understanding the action of love, not the definition, because there's no definition for it. Everybody has a different definition. Love is an action. And you want that to be something that you can grow within. And so those were the things that I began to teach him as I began to learn more about it, right? And so yeah, it was a lot of that, but it took me having him and saying, you know what? I don't want what I did for him because I don't want him to think that this was okay.
Is
So I
that
was
your first child, or did you have an older child to that?
I got two older girls.
So did you go back to them and try to right the wrongs with them too?
I did with my oldest one. Um, and we just kind of left it, like I had the chance to meet her when she was in her late 20s,
Mm,
family, because I hadn't seen her since she was 6 months old. But I never knew I was ever going to get to meet her because I didn't think I was going to make it this far.
yeah.
I was like, she's going to be better off without knowing me. So whatever her mother and everyone else told her about me, you know, I wasn't going to waste the time to go back and correct them. Whatever, I wanted her to live a good life. So if that meant that she had to have a misinterpretation of who I was, I would rather for her to have that misinterpretation, because that was a life that she was given. That was the stories that she was told.
Well, but you don't think she deserved to know? Kind of like when I was talking to my dad, and my dad did pass. So, and I talk about that process in the book. But I would ask him things about my grandmother and ask him things about his family. And I just felt like I deserved the right to know. And at that time, he goes, well, there are some things that are painful. And I said, you know what, Dad, I was 38 at the time. I said, I would love to tell you to take your time, but guess what? I need to know about her. I need
Right,
to
right.
know about my family. So, and I just encourage individuals, even if it's painful, to go back and apologize for not being there, because you don't know what abandonment is for a person, the person that's supposed to love them unconditionally, to
Mhm.
reject them and abandon them.
And you're absolutely right.
Well, and I say that because my dad did that. He was my best friend. We talked
Right.
constantly before he died.
Yeah,
Constantly.
and see,
And he left me in charge.
right, right.
He even though he was with his partner for 34 years, he had a discussion with her that if, I was the one that decided what happened with him, that I was the one that pulled the plug if needed be.
Right.
You know, I was the one that he talked about the do not resuscitate policy that he had. And when I was 7 months pregnant, he actually went into a coma, and I was the one that, had to support him through that.
Hmm.
But so, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn who he was and who he was at the time and the mistakes he made. But so long as he was here, I was okay learning those things. But I think and this is just me, I think parents, the kids deserve that. They
Hmm.
deserve an opportunity to have a conversation with you. And it could be whatever they told you is true, but whatever they told you is true from their perspective. Listen to
Right,
my perspective. You
right.
know, and honestly, be honest with your child and say, I don't have it to give. Like with my kids, sometimes my son will come to me, he's a night owl. And he'll come to me at 10:30 at night, and I'll say, I don't talk to kids at 10:30 at night. That's my husband's time. That's our time to connect.
Right.
So I don't have it to give. And then he'll keep pushing. And then I'm like, son, you want me to blow up? And I don't want to. I'm just telling you, I don't have anything to give a child this time of night. So, and even though he push and push until I finally run him out of the room, or I'm like, but he's had a conversation. So then next time he'll come and say, I know you don't talk to kids at 10:30 at night, but mommy, I need X, Y, and Z. So, and then that's when, the next night, which was last night, I'll say, okay, 9 o'clock, put your phone away. Let's talk. If you want to talk to me about all these things you want to talk about at 10:30 at night, 9 o'clock is our scheduled time. Let's talk about it. You want me to order stuff on Amazon? You want me to do this, that, and the third? You want me to listen to you about your little girlfriend? Let's set this appointment at 9 o'clock.
See, and I understand that, and I when we talked, when I finally got the time to talk to her, whether it was very brief or not, I did tell her. I said, if you ever, I will leave this up to you because I have no right. I have no right to ask of anything from you because I was never there. But if you ever want to know, here's my number.
That's a cop out.
Well,
You want me to tell you why it's a cop out?
yeah, please elaborate.
I tell you it's a cop out because she's a child. She grew up without a father. And so for her to have to come back to you is a cop out. You see what I'm saying? Now you get to walk away and say, well, she never came to me. No,
No,
as a
no,
parent,
I
let me say
never use
this.
that as an excuse.
Yeah,
I never use that as an
and you
excuse.
may
No.
not, but as a parent, it is my job to get it right with my kids.
Mm.
I don't tell my children to get it right with me. If I blow up at them or I get mad with them or I walk away from them, it is my job to pursue them until I get it right because I'm the adult in this situation. Because you don't know the times that she was looking for a father. You don't know the times when she was a teenager and she had difficulty with her mom and you weren't there. You see what I'm saying? You don't know the time when boys were trying to mac daddy and talk to her and you weren't there. So you as a parent, me as a parent, my mom used to say, you owe me because I had you. No, I owe my children everything because I had them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't owe my mom because she laid down with who she laid down to give birth to me. But I owe my kids the world. I owe them everything. And if I say something to hurt them, it's my job as a parent to go and apologize and get it right. And if she doesn't want to talk to me today, okay, here's a letter. Baby, I'm here. I love you.
Understood.
Pursue. Get that
Understood.
right. Because here's the thing. And as many times as it takes, my dad was amazing at that. As many times, I told you how many times I told him I needed him to apologize and get it right.
Yeah.
And he was so patient and loving, and he knew I was hurting. But we talked about those things, and he got it right every time. Until I had to realize it's not him, it's me. I have to get it right because he did the right thing. Even though he did the wrong thing by abandoning me, when I came to him as an adult and he saw my life and he saw where he could fit those pieces in, he did just that. And I made him my whooping boy. Every time I had something that would trigger me at my job, if I saw a dad that wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, Dad, do you believe this? This sorry, so and so and so. And he would say, I know, baby, I know. And then he would come back and say, I saw so-and-so with his daughter playing in the yard. Those are the times I missed with you. And I'm sorry I wasn't there. You see what I'm saying?
Understood. No. And trust me, I didn't take what you said personally. I definitely understand. I would just like to elaborate a little bit. It may not make a difference or anything like that. Unfortunately, my life wasn't a place for a child. There was killing going on. There was a whole lot of things that was out of my control. I had to make a hard decision to protect her. And if that meant that I didn't need to be there, and she not know nothing about me, because she was raised by a very, very wonderful guy, which happened to be my best friend. He raised her since she was 6 months old. He said, Tony, I got this. Like, if you don't survive, don't worry about it. Because I knew, no matter where I went, there was something. There was this darkness that followed me. And I didn't understand it. But no matter where I went, there was just violence. There was always death. And I decided then, that's not what I want around my daughter. I loved her that much.
So what's wrong with writing letters, sending text messages, sending cards, just sending her a journal, your thoughts, love letters to your daughter? You know how many people, and even if she can't read it today, she may read it tomorrow. She may read it when you're gone, but just to pour out and do a journal and do things that you wanted her to know about you and,
Agreed.
and apologize.
Agreed. I have, throughout my time on this earth, when she's born, I've read many letters. I've got many cards from when she was a kid. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Daddy's thinking about you. I had to hide those things because of the people that was around me. Right? If they had known anything about my family, they would have done something to them in order to get to me.
Yeah, I believe that.
So I did do those things, and I still have those things. And eventually, one day, if she permits me, I'm gonna hand them all to her. Now, she may not, because she's exactly like me, like you said, right? She's like whatever, right? But and I get that, and I respect that. If she says that, hey, I don't want to not, okay, she has every right to do that.
But that's all out of pain. You
It
understand.
is, it is. I understand.
Understand she's had, and there have been times my dad was in the hospital, or my dad, I would tell him, I'm not going to disrespect you, so I need a break from you, and I'll contact you when I'm ready. And he gave me that option. He said,
Right,
okay.
right.
So I would tell him, and then it got to the point where I had to just get my emotions in check and come to him, because he was doing everything he could. He was doing everything he could. Now,
Mhm.
Adinah, it's you. It's you. Get yourself together and accept his apology, accept his olive branch, accept what he is giving you. And if you do need a break, take your break, but get your butt back right back there and get it right with your dad, because he's your dad.
See, my buddy Lincoln Smith. So you talk about somebody who's known me for quite some time. Lincoln and I go way back. He's my brother from another mother. So we coming from the streets and things like that. So when I said that, he was like, "Damn, I definitely understand." But he
Yeah,
also
I see
agrees
what
with
he's
you as
saying.
well, you know. and and so it's kind of if you've never lived that life before, it's kind of hard to um, it's kind of hard to put it into words the way that it was. And what we do, we make really hard decisions, and sometimes people may not agree with them, and that's fine. And I'm totally okay with that. No one has to agree with my decisions,
Right.
but I have to go. Actually have to say, if God permits me at this present point in my life, before I pass on out of this world, and gives me an opportunity, yes, I will make the best out of it. I will do those things.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Even though she rejected you yesterday, what makes you guarantee she's going to reject you today?
Nothing. Nothing is guaranteed. Look, nothing is
So
guaranteed.
it may be that day where you're like, I'm here for you, baby. I'm
Hmm.
sorry what I did. I love you. I'm still thinking about you. And then one day she might, but what I'm saying is, as parents, we have to pursue our children and
Hmm.
make sure we get it right, because we're not going to always get it right. But when we have an opportunity and we're still breathing, we have to get it right. And I'm talking from a parent who made a lot of mistakes, but I'm also talking to you from a person who had a parent that made a lot of mistakes, but he got it right.
Right.
My dad,
I'll,
my
I'll
dad,
take that in.
my dad, his wife, his partner wrote me out of his will when I was 3.
Mm,
And how do you write a 3-year-old out of your will? How do you tell a 3-year-old she can't eat, that her daddy doesn't have to take care of her?
mm.
But when I was an adult, when I was like, I don't need you. I have master's degrees. I'm working. I have an amazing husband. My life is good. He chased me for a month to go back and change that will.
I love that.
He chased me for a month because I told him, I said, I don't care if the state takes everything you have. I don't want nothing from you. I don't need anything from you. But his response to me was, but you deserve it. I was wrong at that time. You deserve it. And so he would call me, hey, can we go to the lawyer's office today? Nah, Dad, I don't want to go to the lawyer's office today. For a whole month, until I finally said, okay, fine. I'll go to the lawyer's office with you. He got it right. I'm just telling you, from a parent, from somebody who had to live it. And I did reject it for a long time, for years. But these are the conversations we have to say. What is Lincoln saying?
I'm gonna put it up here because it kind of he again, we come from a place of we grew up in the gangs, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I put it up here, and so he kind of elaborated. I think the question the comment came in a little bit later, and everything. But back to what I was saying, we had made an oath, and loyalty at the same time was focused towards the wrong things because that was what we knew. And then there was no just getting out. Like with me, I was born in it. and I still struggle with it. Right.
When you know better, do better. And the thing is,
Right.
so long
Right.
as you have breath in your body, you have a chance to get it right. Because there's
Right.
some
And
people that
that's the
can't get
thing. Well, and you're absolutely right. So coming from a place of and I think that's where Lincoln is coming from, because we don't do the things that we used to do anymore, right?
right. Right.
But it took us a long time to get to where we are. It took us
But
a
let
long.
me ask you this. Let me
Yes.
ask you this. Do you, and it took you a long time to get where you are, but do you still have to go back and right those wrongs? Or do you just walk away and keep
No,
it
no.
pushing?
Now here's the difference, right? I did. I went. Look, I've done a lot of wrong in my life. But I don't regret anything I've ever done. I don't regret nothing I've ever done. You may not agree with it. That's fine. That's you have a right to not agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I survived when other people didn't. Did I go back and right a lot of wrongs? Yeah. Was there a lot of people mad at me that didn't want to forgive me for the things I've done? They had every right to be mad at me and not forgive me for the things that I've
Mm-hmm.
done. But I did it for me. I didn't do it for no one else. My heart needed to heal.
Mm-hmm.
My soul needed to be whole again as I began to develop my relationship with God, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what He told me to do. You're going to have to go back. You're going to have to be honest with these people,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what happens. You going to have to do the work, Tony.
Okay.
Because if you want this relationship to with me, this is what I require of you.
Right.
I was willing to do that, whether these people wanted to kill me or not. I put myself in a situation and said, you know what? These are the ones that I remember. These are the ones that I remember. A lot of people,
Okay.
women, families, other guys that was out there game banging. A lot of them understood, saying, "Man, you know what? This is what we was doing. And it's part of the game. It's part of the territory that we was running around in."
Yeah.
Let me ask, and they would ask me. Sometimes they would ask me, "Can you forgive me for what I've done?"
Mm-hmm.
We hug it out. We grown. We grown now, right? We on some grown man stuff now. Where
Mm-hmm.
do we go from there? Well, we're going to learn. We're going to learn. We're going to develop, and we're going to grow. We're going to become better human beings in this world, not just for ourselves, but for the people that are around us. Because we have to be better role models. We've already spent time destroying.
Yeah.
Let's spend time building and loving and giving back.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's where that comes from. So yes, that's why I'm glad that you posed that question. Yes, there's a lot of people like myself that have come from a place of darkness and have struggled to get to the light. But once we got there, we understood that, hey, we're going to have to put ourselves in check in this, man, because moving forward, um, we don't want to keep destroying things. We don't want to keep destroying ourselves, because we got a lot of demons that we have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of forgiveness that comes along with that. There's a lot
Right.
of patience and gratitude and appreciation, and understanding when I'm wrong and being honest about that, right? And so when it comes down to my relationship with my daughter, yes, I know that my decision may not be one that many people understood, but there's no but in it.
You did
I
the best thing you could with what you had at
Right.
that
I
time.
wanted to keep her safe. I loved her that much to where, you know what I'm saying? I just wanted to keep her safe, not just from the life I was living, but from me,
Yeah, you
because
did the
I
best
had
you
to
could
become
at
a
that
safe.
time.
Yeah, yeah. See, we can talk forever. And I know you probably got a busy day and everything. Adina, thank you for being on the show today. It was such a great conversation. I would love to do this again. I love this right here.
Yeah.
So again, put your book up so people can see it. Tell them where they can find it.
It's on Amazon. It's Butterfly Blue, The Pain of Infertility and the Power of Forgiveness. And
Awesome,
it's
awesome.
on Amazon. It just chronicles my life as far as my dad and some of the things that happened, as well as my miscarriages. And I mean, it's a whole lot of life in this book.
Right. Now, your podcast, tell people where they can find your podcast.
Black Butterfly, Black Pearls, everywhere you get podcasts. It's
Awesome,
me and my
awesome.
friend of 40 over 45 years, and we bring in a lot of that psychology aspect. She's so different than me though, even though we're so, I mean, we've been friends all of our life. But there's sometimes I'll bring in the research and she goes, I don't believe that, and so she's just
I
so
love it,
different.
man.
And there's some things that I talk to her about, and she's like, "Yeah, you're right, but I don't agree with it, or I'm not gonna go for." It's not all kumbaya. Let's just say that. But you hear us having the
Mhm.
difficult conversations.
Yes.
You hear us having some. I mean, there's sometimes like when I'm triggered, and you'll hear her walk me through some stuff.
See, I love that, right? You know what I'm saying? Because I think we all need people in our lives that will put us in check. That were like, hey, no, 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 let's. I got you, right?
Yeah,
And that's what you call a true sister, true brother, true friend.
yeah.
As you see right
Don't
here,
don't
Lincoln
let
is
me
one of those
wallow
guys.
in my mess. Don't let me wallow in my mess and be loud and wrong.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Pull my
And
feet to the carpet.
hey, we get it together. We really do.
But
All
that's
in
when you
for a
know
podcast. Yeah,
that's when you know when you're grown and it's okay, because you don't want yes men around you. You want somebody
yeah,
that's going to be loving enough. That's when you know somebody care about you and they love you, when they're willing to tell you when you're wrong.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Don't
Oh
don't
yeah,
have me out here bleeding on folks and I'm wrong. You know, let me
exactly,
know. Let
exactly.
me know. And even with us being adults, it's like, man, I didn't like what you said, but you're right. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
like that you told me I need to do XYZ, but you're right. So it's like the things that we talk about and we pull each other to the carpet about and have us to have a conversation. That's why we have these conversations, so we can get a different understanding and get a different perspective. So I can
exactly.
talk to you from the parent standpoint and from the child standpoint.
And
And
I
just
and I appreciate that, right?
yeah, and
Because
just open up
there's
the
so many
conversation.
people that are tuning in right now that totally agree. You know what I'm saying? And changing, you're giving a lot of light to a lot of things that maybe people didn't think about, right?
Yeah,
And so, like I said, I'm a student when it comes down to this. I learn so I can be better. When we know better, we do better, right?
yeah,
And that's the whole purpose of it. That's the purpose of having this human experience in this world, so we can leave the world in a better place than what we found it. And
right,
it's a work in progress. We all have a part to play in it, but we have to be able to give to each other what we need. But and, just like Lincoln, like we've had conversations where I've told him like, no, man, no, hey, you ever get to know him, he'll tell you I'm that guy. Anybody that knows me, I'm that guy. But when I'm wrong too. You know what I'm saying? I look, I don't mind being put in check by anyone. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Let me
and I'm
know.
not checking you. Don't think I'm
No,
checking
no,
you.
no, no. I'm just saying, brother, it's I don't mind being corrected. I don't mind being given information to help me be better. I need to, being checking it and things like that. I didn't mean it that way, right? But I don't mind someone saying, "Hey, what about this?"
Yeah,
I'm not, I'm open to learning, right? I am just now starting to understand what this life is about for the most part, from my point of view, as I begin to grow into my new self,
right.
right? And I'm continually growing. So, like, no, I didn't take it personal. It's not personal, it's an education. I'm a student. Yeah,
Yeah.
right now you're mentoring me, right? And just as well as everyone else who has been tuning in. And you're right. And she did present it properly. You know what I'm saying? She did exactly what she was supposed to do. Lincoln, you know this. We've talked about this before. So does she remind you of someone?
Well, I believe in speak the truth in love.
Right, right, right. And that's what a lot of people don't understand that as well, right? Because a lot of people don't know how to present it. But I love the way that you brought it in. I love the conversation. Now, before I let you go, if you can leave what the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
Well, one of the things I encourage people to do is live your best life and be your best self.
Hmm.
So the mistakes of yesterday are not the same things we're going to do tomorrow. What are you doing with Lincoln? I know y'all are still going back and forth.
I know what he was talking about. He was like, I wasn't talking about her. Get you, Lincoln. Love you too, man.
So thanks for tuning in, Lincoln. We appreciate you.
Yeah, most definitely.
All I'm saying is live your best life. Do better today than you did yesterday. And if you're still here, you have an opportunity to get it right. So that's what I encourage people to do, and to stop the insanity. Don't keep doing the same thing expecting a different result. If something's not working for you, let's change it. Let's wake up tomorrow and do something better. Let's change it for the better and be the better. And I think that will help our community to grow and learn.
Awesome, awesome. Now, one last thing. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Facebook under my name, Adinah Johnson. They can find my book on Amazon. They can find me on Black Butterfly, Black Pearls. And it's so crazy because I keep mentioning my podcast because that's just like my favorite thing right now.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but we did last week. We did Black Butterfly, Black Pearls happy hour. We've done Black Butterfly, Black Pearls after dark. We've done happy hour. We've done live at Podfest. So my co-host was so happy that I let her drink on the podcast and not say. There's sometimes on the podcast I'm like, whatever you had, pass me some because you are on one, and I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down.
I love it. I definitely love it. Adinah, thank you for being on the show today. And definitely love to do it again. I'm definitely going to check out your podcast and link and yes, I'm gonna get those links sent over there if they're not already in the description. Go ahead and check out the description. I do believe I put it in there. Let me know if I didn't, and I'll get over there to you. Anyone else, please go over there and check out the podcast. Check out a book. A lot of great information. If you guys love this conversation, enjoy this conversation, please do me a favor. Head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. But most importantly, if you know anyone who can benefit from these conversations that we have, please share this with them. This helps us get the content out there to more people in an effort to just normalize the talks and understand that you're not alone in this world. And, as Adinah said, when you know better, we do better. Adinah, again, thank you for being on the show. Thank everybody for tuning in, and we really appreciate the support. We see you guys in the next episode. I am Tony Lynch, and you guys have a great, awesome day. Peace.